Night settled over the quiet American suburbs with a sky painted in thick clouds and the sound of distant cars rolling along. The main road the house stood at the end of Willow Lane, an old two-story building, once white, now gray. The paint faded by time and weather, and inside the moving truck had just pulled away, leaving behind the quiet rumble of its engine. Fading into the distance, Evan the father stood on the front porch staring up at his new home, chest filling with the cold, crisp air that always smelled like beginnings. His wife Avery stepped beside him, brushing her dark hair from her face. The children were already inside, running through rooms, claiming spaces, laughing over echoes that bounced off the walls. The house had been empty for 10 years, empty in the way abandoned buildings are, untouched and silent, yet some part of it felt awake. As the family entered, carrying their boxes and belongings, something moved. Behind the walls, like a breath withheld, the dusty air hung thick around every staircase, every doorway, and every window that groaned against the wind outside. Evan called the children downstairs to help, but their voices did not answer. Upstairs, a door creaked open by itself. Slow and heavy, Avery looked toward the stairs, feeling a small uneasy pinch deep in her stomach. She called their names. Again, Ellie and Ryan, no response. So she climbed the stairs, calling louder footsteps, echoing through the old wooden hallway. The light flickered from the ceiling lamp, and as she passed the bathroom mirror, a shadow seemed to move behind her. Reflection, her breath stilled, but when she turned, no one stood there. She shook her head, blaming exhaustion, and stepped into Ellie's room. Ellie sat on the floor, legs crossed, hair falling over her shoulders, staring at an empty corner of the room, whispering something under her breath. Avery knelt beside her, asking who she was talking to, and Ellie replied without blinking. The girl in the corner. Avery smiled awkwardly, thinking it was imagination, and told Ellie to help bring boxes. Inside, Ellie responded with a tilt of her head, saying she wanted to stay with the girl. Avery asked what girl. Ellie pointed to the empty corner, eyes wide and serious, and said, "She lives here, Avery." Heart slowed, but she stayed calm, telling Ellie to come downstairs. Ellie suddenly whispered into the corner and then stood up, walking toward the door. Avery followed close behind her daughter, uneasy but saying nothing. Downstairs, Evan and Ryan were unpacking boxes. Ryan, 11 years old, sat on the living room couch, flipping through an old children's book they found in a drawer. Ryan asked why the previous owners left the book. Evan responded, "Probably forgotten." Ryan turned the page, looking confused, saying the pages are warm. Evan laughed and ruffled his son's hair. Avery came downstairs and asked Evan if he knew Ellie was talking to the walls. Evan shrugged, saying she's just a kid, new house imagination. Avery tried to accept that, but her eyes drifted to the staircase, and she felt a pressure behind her ribs, like something heavy was leaning against her chest. Ryan stared into the pages, whispering something. Evan asked if he was talking. Ryan shook his head, then whispered again, louder this time. Evan leaned closer, hearing words repeated over and over. Get out. The voice Ryan used did not sound like his own. Avery turned pale. Evan took the book from Ryan's hands, but the pages were blank, every single one. Ryan stared at the cover, now confused, saying he saw words just a second ago. Evan took a step back. The room grew colder. The ceiling light flicked again, and Ellie appeared at the bottom of the stairs, giggling at something behind her. Avery asked why she was laughing. Ellie said the girl told her a joke. Avery tried to laugh along, but unease was growing inside her stomach. Every corner of the house seemed to press inward, shadows clinging longer than they should. Evan put the book down, asking Ryan where he found it. Ryan pointed to a wooden drawer under the old couch. Avery lifted the cushion, finding the wood chipped and scratched, deep marks like nails had clawed through it. Suddenly, Ellie ran to the front window, staring outside, whispering into the glass. The air condensed, showing small handprints, not Ellie's, not Ryan's smaller, older prints. Fingertips smeared downward. Evan touched the window, confused. Avery whispered, "How can there be prints outside? It's too high from the ground." Ellie smiled wide, showing small teeth, saying she likes to climb. Evan asked who she just stared at him with hollow innocence, saying, "You will meet her soon." Night continued folding around the house. Dinner tasted different. Silence filled the table, even though forks scraped against plates. Ellie spoke suddenly, saying she doesn't like loud sounds. Avery asked who. Ellie softly whispered, "The girl who lives in the walls," her voice barely above a breath. Ryan said he heard footsteps upstairs. Evan said the house is old. Everything makes sound. Avery nodded, trying to swallow her fear, but a sound came from the second floor, a soft thump, then another something moving heavy. Yet slow silence returned. Evan stood up. Walking to the staircase, children watched. Wide-eyed Avery followed behind. Him, the hallway upstairs was darker. Then before light, refusing to stretch far, Evan called out, "Anyone up here? No answer." He moved toward the master bedroom, and the air smelled like rotten flowers, a strange mix of perfume and decay. Ellie and Ryan stood behind. Their parents, small and trembling, Avery told them to go downstairs. But Ryan refused, saying the whispering comes from this room. Ellie clutched her mother's hand, staring into the dark doorway, whispering, "She is standing there, Evan." Heart thudded. He turned on a lamp, and the weak yellow glow poured into the room. Nothing inside but furniture boxes and empty corners. Avery exhaled, relieved, but Ellie shook her head, saying, "She is hiding, Avery." Voice shook. "Ellie, who is hiding Ellie?" Said the girl. "Ryan said she crawls on the ceiling." Avery blinked rapidly, saying, "That's impossible," Ellie whispered. "You will see." Evan stepped closer to the bed, bending down to check beneath it, the dust thick, untouched, but the wooden floor was scratched, with lines going in circles, dozens of circles. Ryan knelt beside him, saying someone. Drew eyes. Evan touched the marks. Wood splintered like someone carved with fingernails. He stood up, feeling sweat gather on his neck. Avery asked if they should sleep at a hotel. Evan laughed, nervously, saying, "The house is just old. They are tired." Imagination. Nothing more. Night thickened outside. The wind howled, and the house seemed to breathe in the dark warmth. Fled the air. Floorboards groaned, walls clicked, whispering sounds swirling through the wallpaper. Ryan woke from sleep hours later. Sitting in his bed, heart racing, he heard a voice whispering behind his head. He slowly turned, but no one stood there. Whispering continued louder. "Do you see me?" Ryan whispered. "No," but the voice answered. "I see you." Ryan stared at the closet door, darkness leaking from beneath it, the knob slowly turning. He froze, unable to scream. The door opened a fraction, and two pale fingers curled around the edge. Ryan closed his eyes, breath shaking. The fingers retreated, and the whispering stopped. He crawled out of bed, inching through the hall, trembling, and down the stairs. Evan, asleep on the couch, woke to footsteps. Ryan curled beside him, saying, "Something is in my room." Evan held him tight, whispering it was just a nightmare, but Ryan's skin felt ice cold. Evan suddenly noticed Ellie's bedroom light was on. Upstairs, footsteps creaked. Avery awoke, heart racing. Ellie was not in her bed. Avery ran down the hallway, calling her name. Ryan and Evan followed, panic rising. Avery reached the staircase and froze. Ellie stood at the bottom, motionless, staring at the front door, eyes wide, unblinking. Avery called her name. Ellie whispered, "She wants to come." And Evan walked toward the door, slowly, asking who. Ellie answered. "The girl." Avery asked, "Where is she?" Ellie pointed. Outside. Evan opened the door. Nothing but wind, empty lawn, darkness. Ellie whispered, "She is fast." Evan asked Ellie what she meant. Ellie said she ran past you. Evan stepped outside, calling, "No one there." Avery hugged Ellie tightly, whispering, "You scared us." Ellie whispered back, "She is already inside."